In 2007, she became a star on television and then immediately a star on Broadway, growing in stature year after year for 14 years. And then COVID struck. And in an instant, like that, she just became the villain of Broadway, as if she ran the Wuhan lab or something. She was cast out, and she's still kind of out. What in God's name did sweet Laura Osnes do? I was there when her fairy tale began, and we reunite right here, right now, on Hot Mics with Billy Bush, presented by our friends at LAGOLF. Hot Mics with Billy Bush. Great title. You know it. And welcome to Hot Mics, and thank you for joining us. I'm Billy Bush. We are on TuneIn and YouTube. We are live right at this moment. I know what it feels like to love your job, be well regarded in your industry, and to have the whole apparatus turn its back on you. Cancellation. It is swift, it is unrelenting, uninterested in nuance or rational thinking. It's impatient and it's violent. For those upon whom the fate of castigation falls, if you're not well supported by friends and family, the worst of outcomes is not only possible, but likely. My guest today is like a modern-day Snow White. I mean, without the dwarves. She whistles to the birds. She's pure and kind. And she got devoured by the bitchiest, snobbiest, elitist gang in town. They sip espresso in black turtlenecks and judge others out of fear. They look down the brim of their noses at anyone who expresses anything outside their accepted doctrine. They are the performers, directors, producers, and worst of all, gossip columnists of Broadway. Before we get to our guest, Broadway leading lady and winner of the NBC television series that I hosted many years ago, Grease, You're the One That I Want, Laura Osnes, let's address the major health news that sort of came out this week, because the subject matter happens to lie at the center of Laura's sudden and barbaric exile from her passion and livelihood, her work on Broadway. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Monday announced an unprecedented overhaul of the childhood vaccine schedule that recommends fewer shots to all children now. Before we forcibly adopt Greenland from you, we're going to adopt your existing vaccination protocol, Denmark. Denmark recommends that all children get vaccines for 11 diseases compared with the 17 here in America that we previously had on the schedule. So when this got announced on Monday, the White House release included that the schedule is rooted in the gold standard of science and widely agreed upon by scientists and experts all over the world. Effective today, America will no longer require 72 jabs for our beautiful, healthy children. We're moving to a far more reasonable schedule where all children will only be recommended to receive vaccinations for 11 of the most serious and dangerous diseases. However, this updated schedule finally aligns the United States with the other developed nations around the world. It goes on. Trump's hands are all over this statement, especially with the beautiful and the jabs. But many Americans, especially the Maha moms, have been praying for these common sense reforms for many years. Thank you for your attention to this matter, as he likes to end. So senior HHS officials, they cited a drop in vaccine uptake of routine vaccinations for children, including declining measles vaccination rates, as evidence of declining public trust in vaccines. I think that's right. I hear more people talking about it, except just, over following the accepted doctrine more and more these days. There are voices in the medical community, of course, who bemoan the lack of transparency on the data the HHS just used to make this decision. They think it's dangerous. In the end, remember, HHS clearly stated parents can still choose to give their children all the vaccinations if they wish, and they will still be covered by insurance. So, parents now just basically have to debate. They have to research and decide which vaccinations are right for their kids. My guest today literally had her life and career ripped away from her for doing exactly that, deciding whether or not to get vaccinated for COVID. Let's be honest, information was moving at lightning speed. It was hard for Fauci didn't even know what he was talking about. He didn't know if masks were good or not. He'd been there for like 40 years, deciding whether to get vaccinated for COVID or not. The foot soldiers of the progressive elite left wing who overpopulate her profession on Broadway found out that she was undecided about the vaccine. She was wavering. Laura was doing her due diligence, still researching. But because of that, she was unvaccinated at this moment in the middle of COVID. And they turned on her mercilessly. Now, I will never forget Laura Osnes. First of all, she's absolutely beautiful. And when I met her, I was the host of the television show on NBC in 2007 called Grease, You're the One That I Want, primetime TV. Maybe you recall it was a show that it was like a competition show, like The Voice or American Idol or whatever. Instead of winning money or a record contract, the winners of the show, a Broadway show, would go straight to the Great White Way in leading roles. In this case, the production of Grease. And Laura Osnes was a 21-year-old kid recently engaged. She was so young, and she auditioned and made it all the way through. And week after week, the phone calls and the votes kept, going her way. And she won the role of Sandy on Broadway. And months later that summer, she began her run. Now, the reception when she first got there was not so great for her. The initial resentment could be felt. All the people who had come up and in Broadway, a very tight-knit community, sort of an elitist community, as you might imagine, but people work very hard to get these roles, and all of a sudden you win a television show, and you're Miss Telegenic, and you come in, and now you're the lead of a big Broadway production. Well, look, she dropped out of college for all of this. She was doing dinner theater, and when it hits, it hits, and she just had her moment at 21. And she hopped in a U-Haul, and she drove from Minnesota to New York City after winning the TV show. And she knew she was called all kinds of things. People were calling her test tube baby and all these things, winning a television series, making it this way is just so down market. Can't you just hear the snobs of Broadway, shitting all over this nice girl? Well, horrible behavior for Laura to have to see. And then something quite stunning happened. While she was rocking away on Broadway for 13 years successfully, COVID struck. And, Laura Osnes this is a successful person. She had the role in South Pacific. After Grease, 2 years later, she auditioned 4 different times for another lead role and got that. So she had proved herself way past the test tube baby thing, right? At that point, the Broadway community kind of started to embrace her. And she was accepted. And she had that great run for 13 years. Then COVID came. COVID hit and Broadway shut down on March 12th, 2020. So for a year, like everyone else, she, did what she could. She found other ways to exist. And then in the summer of 2021, things started to loosen up a little bit. And she had this friend, director Susan Stroman, who called her and said, hey, look, we're doing a little production out here at Guildhall in the Hamptons, out on Long Island, and it's just a one-night production of Crazy for You. We'd love to have you. And Laura said, okay, I'm down. This would be good, right? She's got to get some reps in, if you will. They've been sitting on the bench for too long. So Susan Stroman, the director, emails Laura Osnes on June 30th of 2021 and says, the Guild, by the way, is requiring that everyone show their vaccination card. I'm sending a private email to everyone, I have here that I have performing over these 3 days to ask about their vaccination status. Let me know ASAP. I still love you, no matter what. Have a beautiful day. Thanks, Susan. Well, later that day, Laura Osnes replied, hey, I so appreciate this respectful email and totally understand. I know it's become very controversial, this subject. And I have to say, I'm in the minority here within our little New York City community. I'm not currently vaccinated. I may end up doing so down the line, but for the moment, Nate and I, Nate, her husband, we decided to wait until we know a little bit more about it. In retrospect, kind of a heads-up play, right? You know, with the variants and the resurgence, I get why Guildhall is requiring it, said Laura. I'm very bummed to have to lose this particular gig for that reason. Let me know if I can help or if you need any other information on my end. Lots of love, Laura. Well, Susan Stroman replies to that. Oh, Laura, I'm bummed too, but respect your decision. Thanks for letting me know. You know I love you, and we will be together someday again. Love, Susan. Susan was a graceful handling of a potentially contentious matter, right? And that right there, Laura Osnes thought, was the end of it, right? Well, about a week later, the New York Post, page 6, gossip column, jumped all over it. They got wind, and suddenly Laura Osnes was a villain from, an absolutely gorgeous Broadway ingenue to the villain of Broadway in one stroke. One writer said, she's been ineffective, infected with the murderous disarray and disregard for your colleagues and society in general. They called her murderous. An on-stage blog, a big Broadway blog, a professional blog, referred to Laura's vaccine decision as, quote, one of the highest acts of selfishness you could do for this industry. A theater lover on Instagram wrote, I fucking hate you, Laura. I hope you never appear on a Broadway stage again, you blanking selfish. Oh my God, right? Let that sit for a second. My interview with Laura Osnes in just a second. But first, a quick note from our sponsor, PrizePicks. It is the best place to win cash while watching sports. The app is a breeze. All you got to do is pick more or less on a few players' statistics. Big football weekend, starting with college football, right? And I'm going to pick one of the games because I got a lot in it. Ole Miss. We're a big Ole Miss family. Here we go. Let's take a look at what we got. Carson Beck, quarterback for Miami. Will he have more or less than 235 and a half passing yards? I say less, Carson. The Ole Miss Rebels are on a roll. They beat Georgia. They're coming after you, pal. You're going to have less. Trinidad Chambliss, quarterback for Ole Miss. Here's an easy one. Will he have at least one passing touchdown? He sure will. We'll take that. Also, Trinidad, I think will rush. He's so good on his feet. The line is 23 and a half rushing yards. I say he'll have more than that. So I think there's money to be made on Ole Miss right there. And let's take a look at the NFL. Okay, baby, the NFL. All right, we got some major playoff games. The Chicago Bears and the Packers. Look at this. Caleb Williams. Will he have at least a passing touchdown? Of course he will. The line is just a half. I say he'll at least have one. We'll take more there. Caleb Williams, more or less than 208 and a half passing yards. I think more. And his opposite, Jordan Love, quarterback for the Packers, 223.5. I say he'll have more, too. I think it's going to be a high-firing game, high-scoring. And then let's take a look quickly at Saturday afternoon, the game before it, Matthew Stafford and the Rams versus Carolina Panthers. Oh, man. I'm playing this one safe. Is Stafford, who I think should be MVP of the league, if not Drake May, passing touchdowns, 1.5? I say he has more. I think Matt Stafford basically has like 4 per game, so I think to at least have 2, no problem. We'll take more. As for Bryce Young, he'll have at least 1. It's a half right there. I say more. He'll have 1 touchdown. There you go. You can win up to 2,000 times your cash on a single lineup. With PrizePicks, you can play in over 40 states, including California and Texas. Right now, PrizePicks will give you $50 when you play your first $5 lineup. Just use promo code HOTMICS and download the PrizePicks app. Okay, we talked about Laura Osnes and her story on Broadway, story of cancellation because she was vacillating over a vaccine. Let's roll in my interview with Laura. In my interview, you're going to love her energy. I'll see you on the side. On the other side with any comments afterwards. Look at
Billy.
you. Jesus, you just have not aged 1 ounce.
Neither have you, my friend. It is so good to see you. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Grease, you're the one that I want on
18 years.
NBC. What an incredible, and we'll get to that, but I sort of, where, oh God. Oh God. Well, I don't think we had high def television in 2007, but
No.
that's you and me right there, side by side, you in the yellow
That's
dress and me in an ill-fitting suit with terrible hair.
my heart
Oh.
was undoubtedly pounding in that moment, I'm sure.
Oh my God. Well, we're going to back up to how it all got to that point, but where I was just telling the audience about just the way things turn
Hmm.
so quickly. I know a little of this in my own life. 1 minute things are never better. And of course, COVID had struck, but career-wise, you were just completely on fire.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden, the people who love you and praise you and for all of your wonderful work turn on an instant. Am I right when I say that you actually received like death threats?
I mean, in a way, yes. It was very extreme, and as you said, it felt like the entire industry was turning. But it's several loud voices. It's that activist kind of class, especially in the entertainment industry,
Yeah.
um, that wants to tear down other people or call out someone that isn't falling in line. Um, and I never had any intention of becoming a poster child for any sort of movement. I was just kind of quietly wanting to do my thing and had no choice in my situation being broadcast in the New York Post. And so learning to deal with that was very tricky. And yeah, there was a ton of hatred. I had to stop looking at my phone for almost a year, and my husband read messages for me, and we escaped. We escaped from New York down to Tennessee, and we love it down here. It's great.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because Guildhall in the Hamptons actually had a policy that unvaccinated performers were allowed to perform. You just needed to get, tested before the performance like anyone else. But then, the New York Post, which can be lethal. By the way, owned by Rupert Murdoch, and if anyone was going to be, less judgy of something like that, you would think of all the New York papers, it would be that one. Uh,
Of course.
but but
Yes.
but they jumped on it because it was a beautiful story, and you became. I mean, listen, in sports they did the same thing to Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. Yep.
So
Followed
it
his story
went
very closely.
sports, entertainment, these large Broadway, these large organizations. There is so much fear in having your role and so much conformity because it's so hard to come by them. You don't want to lose it when you've got it. And so everybody just goes with the prevailing wind. And you weren't, I mean, as I see it, you were wanting to inform yourself before, all of a sudden injecting something that had very little research behind it. You just wanted to know more. So like, well, we haven't done this, we're looking into it. We don't know. We haven't done it. And then all of a
Yes.
sudden you became anti-vaxxer. She's the
Ah,
worst.
that's it. It's it was just as mandates were beginning to be rolled out, and I didn't feel peace about it. I didn't feel comfortable with it right away, just jumping on a bandwagon, and decided that it was worth pulling out of this gig. I was getting paid like $500 to do a one night concert. And I said, it's okay, I'd rather wait a little longer if you're going to mandate I get a vaccine just to do this little show on Long Island one night. And yeah, a week later, there was the article in the Post. And it is so funny how I think the thing that was the most hurtful was that, like, my character, my reputation, the 15 years of working in the industry, like, suddenly didn't matter at all. And people made a ton of assumptions based on this one choice I was making for myself in that moment.
And you sued
Crazy.
you sued the New York Post, right? And I think you settled. And so that to me, a settlement is an acknowledgement of wrongdoing.
Thank you.
Did that go well? Was that you? Who advised you to do that? You don't look like the suing type, but I'm glad you did. I wish I had sued the shit out of NBC, and I'll say it now.
Right?
Oh yeah, I
It's
wish I did. I should have. I would have crushed them.
I'm in my life, typically, I am such a rule follower. I think I had to let go of so much of what people think and really listen to my convictions and build a backbone. And that's what this did for me. And when suing the Post came up for defamation, it was like, if are when faced with an opportunity to act in courage or to cower, are we the courageous type? Is this what we're going to do and we're going to stand firm and have fortitude, or are we going to just to cower and not take a stance when something wrong was done? And that's essentially what decided what was the deciding factor for us, I think, moving forward and suing the Post. And the case was resolved. It was a long, drawn out, terrible process, as lawsuits are. But I'm glad we did it. I'm glad we fought for something that we believe to be true. And there were many untruths in that article that, painted me in a not very positive light after feeling like I had served and loved and found a home within the Broadway community for 15 years.
But the Broadway community is also very catty, especially the media around it. Michael Rydell is a writer that is just as persnickety and nasty as they come. He said, about what happened to you, I don't really care. I let the chips fall where they may, and I move on to the next bit of gossip. I never really calculate those things. This is juicy. Let's put it in the paper. Whatever the repercussions are, I just move on to the next hit job. I admire the honesty, at least move on to the next hit job. You're acknowledging that was a complete hit job, but everybody sort of rallied around it. Even, they always say you find out who your friends are.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yep.
They didn't rally. The friends I'm sure you had a lot of friends you thought were friends that did not rally for you. And that hurts more than anything, any name that you could be called.
That is true. I think it was very surprising, but what also happened because my case was made so public is that strangers started reaching out in total support, going, the same thing is happening to me. I can't work in my industry. Thank you for taking a stand. You're such a great role model. Thank you for your conviction, for holding your ground. And so with this barrage of hatred, I was getting this barrage of encouragement and positivity for the choice that I had made and the stance that I had taken, whether I had volunteered to take that stance or not so publicly. And I think that's what's been beautiful about the whole thing is because it was made so public, like I did find my people on the other side. I lost a lot of friends, but a lot of friends now found me because they knew I had gone through what I had gone through.
I read about Gianni Valenti, the owner of Birdland. You had a great, relationship, Birdland Jazz Club in New York. He said, I have a personal friendship with Laura. And what happened to her hurts me. We had a great relationship, and then it just disappeared. And then the writer asked, well, would you book her again? And he said, well, I'm certainly not going to be the first. Like, why? Where's your conviction? Where's your courage? She's just simply very talented. And people don't come for anything other than the beautiful voice and the performance.
Yeah, I think a lot of true colors were shown, and you do find out who your people are. And, I think New York, it was interesting with that article in the Free Press. I was very grateful to do that article and be interviewed by Zach Bissonette. But I have to say, my husband and I were very intentional going into that interview, wanting to speak from a place of healing and hope and forgiveness, because that's where we are now. Oh, I'm 4 years past it.
Yeah.
We have moved on. For a year and a half, I was on the floor and I was depressed and anxious and finally have moved on with our lives. And I'm like, what a cool way to be able to speak on such a wide platform from a place of healing. And none of that made the article. The tone of the article was very much, a star has fallen. And I'm like, I would have appreciated that 3 years ago. But at this point, there was none of the redemption in the article. And
Right.
whether that was for me or for not. Maybe, New York is still in the place where they need to be reminded of how horrible they were. But I actually didn't I started reading the article and I was a third of the way in and I stopped reading because I was like, this is giving voice to all of the hatred all over again, which I have healed from and have moved on from. And where's the hope? Well, what's she doing now? How has she overcome that? Which is why I was excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, how do you overcome that? And I've been in a fetal position before. I've had it all at the fingertips. You've been at the height, and then all of a sudden, in a flash, it's gone, and you don't really know what to do.
We have that in common.
We have that in common, and
Yeah.
and then, but how? What I'm interested in is how did you get off the floor? How did you start to put one foot in front of the other and find your way out?
I think there's a lot of you that wants to hold on to the bitterness for a while because if you heal too quickly, people will think the pain wasn't that bad.
Right.
And so I enjoyed holding on to the pain for a while, and then I realized it was holding me back from everything that was coming next for me. And I was stuck wallowing in a place. And I attribute a lot of so much of my healing to my amazing husband, Nate, who you know as well. We were
Yeah.
engaged when you and I met, and he was just such a rock for me. I'm a person of faith, and so finding hope on the other side of going through something like that and going, okay, my character is being built here. My resilience is being built. My
Yeah.
fortitude is being built. And I can look myself in the mirror at the end of the day going like, my integrity is still intact because of what I endured going through all of that.
Life
But I
is unfair.
started,
You found out the hard way that life is
yep,
unfair. And
yep,
one of the things that I turned to was Stoic philosophy, and which basically stands on the principle that you can't control events in life.
yep.
Terrible things happen. The only thing you can control is how you respond.
Your response. Absolutely.
And I see in
And
you a woman of great character. I saw a young girl of great character. And then, I mean, it is no surprise to me that you are sitting where you are sitting, as confident and strong as you are today. I'm grateful, so happy. Your husband, Nate, truly one of the nicest fellas. And, that's what marriage, sickness and in health, good times and bad. Oh, God, let's throw it up.
oh,
He posted this beautiful thing for you. Happiest of birthdays to the love of my life. I could not be more proud of
oh
the
my
woman
God.
that you've become, and I fall in love with you more and more each year. I love your courage, even when you don't feel courageous. Kindness, love for people, tender heart, enjoyment of the small things, and passion for your craft. You are such an incredible woman, and you just get better each year. Here's to a new chapter of creating, walking in forgiveness, living life to the fullest, and many adventures with the ones we hold dear.
Isn't
Oh,
he the best? I'm
jeez.
crying.
Oh, that's
Um,
really nice. That's really nice. And of course, you had him to lean on, but the hardest part is you want. Where are you? The people that told me you love me and support me, and then you realize, how do you get past that when you realize, they're scared too. They're scared if
yeah.
they say something for you. It's not that they're bad people. It's just that they're terrified by that awful spotlight that comes and that can take everything you have away in an instant.
I think people see what can happen in that cancel culture that this world has become obsessed with. And no one wants to stick their neck out for the potential of being put in that position. I just would want to encourage the next generation to not be afraid of it. There is community on the other side. And if we continue to stay siloed in silence and always fall in line, then nothing's going to change. Being on the other side of this with you and I going like, how can we prevent something like this from happening in the future? And I think if people were more out, not outspoken necessarily. I'm not touting my views on Instagram here and there. I'm living with conviction and holding true to my values. But I think if people were more bold in doing that in the first place, that there would be a more acceptance of a diversity of thought, of people having
I
their
know.
own, free thoughts that you don't have to conform and fall in line with what everybody's saying or else. There's always that threat. And I want our young people to be confident in who they are and know that their opinions and their voice matter.
Do you think that's gotten better since 2021, or do you think it's worse?
I wish I could say that I think it's gotten better, and maybe it did for a moment, but I would say no. I would say it
Yeah, well,
hasn't.
I know our diversity of thought has gotten the chasm between left and right and whatever is gotten deeper, and the vilification and the discourse has gotten
Yes,
more vitriolic, I would say.
I
Um,
agree.
but I think it's harder. It feels like it might be a little harder to cancel people.
I think people are recovering from
They're
cancel
tired
culture
of
a
it.
lot faster. Exactly. It's more
It's
common now,
exhausting.
maybe. So if you don't let it bother you, you're like, okay, great. I'm gonna keep being me. Onward.
A great writer named John Ronson wrote a book about all this called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed," and it's the most brilliant read I've ever read. He called it "The Escalating War on Human Flaws." Like,
Wow.
and by the way, nothing that you did was a flaw, but it is like basically it's the tearing down of of people for things everyone is capable of and everybody thinks about and and it's all of a sudden that craziness is unsustainable because eventually it comes for you, whoever you are.
That's it. That we're all one moment away from potentially being canceled. So living in fear of it is not worth it. And I think again, you find out who your friends are. And the sweet thing for me and in my situation, I found was that, as I said, yes, I lost a lot of community, but I also found a whole new community of people that has been so great and that also has helped in healing. And I found new sources of creativity and purpose in my life. All I had done was musical theater. I put all my eggs in that basket from when I was 4 years old. And so to now be at a point in my life where I'm like, oh, I started writing songs and releasing my own music. I wrote a script. I'm producing and working on TV film projects. Like there's a whole new chapter of
So great.
art and beauty that is being created and made because of this, new season.
I'm actually doing this show is called Hot Mics, and the conversations are hot, and we control them, and they're interesting, and I'm building it all on my own. I wouldn't have done this. I
For
wouldn't have
you.
had to put myself in a format and where I can say and espouse on whatever I feel and believe in.
Yeah.
So you're right. Getting there is the challenge. But boy, they say you'll be stronger on the other side. It's true. You don't want to hear it at the time. Oh, it's going to
Right.
be, you don't want to hear it. At the time, you want to say, you have no idea what you're talking about. Shut up. But sadly, it's true.
That has been my experience as well.
And I can
Yep.
see that in you.
Like,
So I want to go back to where this began because it's too fun and too exciting. Laura had a tremendous run on Broadway on the Great White Way, and it all happened when she was 21 years old. It was March of 2007. There was a television show on NBC we referred to earlier called Grease, You're the One That I Want. It was from a British format. I believe they started it in England, and the winner, it was The Sound of Music, I think, is how they started. And the winners would go right to the West End. And same thing here for NBC. They picked up the format. And here's a girl, you were, I think, 21, right? You were just engaged. You were working dinner theater in Minnesota?
wow, you remembered, or maybe you re-researched. Yes,
I
I was
refreshed.
playing Sandy at a dinner theater in Minnesota. Yeah.
And your grandmother came to you and said, I'm hearing about something on NBC, darling. What did she say?
It was actually, if I'm remembering correctly, it was my aunt who
Oh,
saw an article in the newspaper in Minnesota that was like NBC is casting Sandy and Danny in Grease on Broadway via reality show. And Broadway had always been my dream. And so I had this like pull in my heart that was like, go, like you need to go. And I was like, I'm just thinking I'm in a show at the time. A lot of things would have to fall in line and be approved if I were to take time off. And I wrote a letter to the director of the show, and he gave me permission to leave for a weekend and fly to LA and audition. And I did. I kept making it past the next level. Went to like that Grease Academy week,
yeah.
which was like a week-long Broadway boot camp. And then January of 2027, sorry, 2007 was when we started the live shows from January to March. We were on TV together doing the live shows. Like American Idol, we sang on TV every week, and America called in and voted for their favorite contestants to win the roles of Sandy and Danny.
And it's just the greatest. I mean, instead of like winning $1 million or whatever, you get a starring role on Broadway. You get a
Right.
run on Broadway. You went for 554 straight shows. You never missed a show, which is pretty incredible. And you won along with Max Crum, who won the role of Danny, and the two of you
Yeah.
go to Broadway. But the reception when you got there, and this is actually understandable. You can see all these people who have sweated it out and gutted it out, and then these two come in, these little, they called you test tube babies. One person
Yeah.
did. They win on television, and all of a sudden they're stars on Broadway. What did that feel like to see those reviews? Did it put fire under the skin there or what?
Sure. Yeah, it went both ways. I felt like doing a reality show is its own public trial that was very difficult. I mean, who teaches you the mental, emotional, and physical demands of having to do something like that and put yourself out on national television? So I felt like we had earned it in one way, but then you're right. We didn't have to pay our dues for years and years and go to open calls and things like that. It was a very different process. And I think there were some people that wanted to hate us because of Max and I, because of our overnight success story. But then the stage door said something different. And every night when I walked on stage, I got entrance applause. And there were
Yeah.
mobs of people at the stage door wanting to meet us because they had watched us on TV and voted for us. And so, you have to take everything with a grain of salt and go, of course, the press is going to want to tear us down.
Yeah.
But it made me, like with the reality show, want to work hard to prove them wrong. And that is why I took it so seriously. And I took very good care of myself, and I never missed a show and wanted to establish a good reputation because Broadway had always been my dream, and I wanted to continue a career in that field.
I mentioned it earlier, but one of the critics is not everyone on the Great White Way would be devastated if they fell on their bright young faces, and they're just just such nasty, catty little. If they made a movie about the nasty, gossipy Broadway, I could see Nathan Lane in the role of that
There you
horrible little
go.
writer, just saying all these bilious things, and then you exactly. You go through the stage door, you walk out on stage, the audience says a different thing, but you go on and you nail the lead role in South Pacific in 2009. Now, that must have been maybe the greatest feeling I could ever imagine because
Oh,
you rose above all those critics and now you got the big role and it had nothing to do with television, it had everything to do with your prior work.
thank you. That truly was the thing that I felt legitimized me amidst the Broadway community. I had four auditions to replace the luminous Kelly O'Hara as Nellie
Wow.
Forbush in South Pacific. So I had to jump through every hoop. I had heard that like stars were auditioning for this. This was a very coveted role in place. And at my final callback, I had to sing for the Rodgers and Hammerstein estate. And then at my final callback, they had me come in and read with Paolo Schott, who had just won the Tony Award for his performance as Emile DeBeck. And I'm like 23. I'm a total baby. I have no idea what I'm doing. And he's like tall, dark, and handsome and had just won the Tony Award. And luckily, the chemistry test went well. And I got a call from my agent saying, Laura, how would you like to wash your hair 8 times a week on Broadway?
Oh my God.
And I immediately started bawling and was so very honored to get to take over that role.
Boy, Nate is a comfortable man. You're so beautiful, and you've got such a you've got leading lady everything, and so you're always going to have a romantic opposite. How does Nate handle all that?
Oh, it's true. I've gotten to play the ingenue and fall in love many a time on stage and screen. Fortunately, neither of us have a jealous spirit, but we've learned how to prioritize our marriage, obviously. And, at night, his is the ring I have on my finger. He's the one I come home to. And he's been so incredibly supportive. And I think we've gone through seasons where we've had to be like, okay, if we're not careful here, like we've got to get back on the train together. Granted, we've been married 18 years, so you go through a lot. And we've just prioritized putting each other first and making our marriage the most important thing amidst all the career relationships. And I think I've had amazing co-stars, and I've had great relationships with many of them. So developing that chemistry is important too, but Nate's presence is always there, and I talk about Nate a lot, and I don't put anything out there that I'm looking for anything because I'm not, which is great.
Right, of course. You've got the leading man. You say, I want you to meet Nate. This is Nate, and he is the love of my life, and they say hello to Nate. And by the way, the stage, and of course you've done film work too, but the stage there's no intimacy coordinators, I wouldn't think, on stage. Now we now have this thing called an intimacy coordinator, that goes through all the map. But for film, there's sometimes a lot more going on than on a stage, unless it's Equus with, what's his name? Daniel Radcliffe.
Right. Right.
Who was nude.
Yes, which I saw from the balcony. I was very glad I was far away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But there wasn't intimacy coordinators on Broadway in the day. And, a couple of the shows I did were a little more intimate than others. But I was never afraid to speak up and go, like, I don't feel comfortable with this.
Yeah.
I think just knowing where your boundaries are and establishing those boundaries and, always following wherever that is. I think it's different for everybody. Like, no judgment to someone who feels comfortable getting naked on stage. That's a line that I don't think I would ever want to cross.
I heard opening night Julia Roberts was there for Daniel Radcliffe. I was like, oh my God, you got the pretty woman in the, oh Jesus. I would look at the guest list every night, the VIP list, and be, depending on who's here tonight. Yeah, I'm not doing, send the understudy tonight. There's no way.
Right.
There's no way I'm doing this. This is craziness. We're talking to Laura Osnes right here, who won the television show Grease, You're the One That I Want, which was hosted by me in 2007 on NBC.
And you got to announce it. Billy, I have to say, wait, I still remember your winning line was, looks like it's going to be a honeymoon in Hackensack. Laura, you're Sandy.
Oh my God, a honeymoon in Hackensack. And by the way, where did you live? Hackensack? Did you live across?
No, I was from Minnesota, but I was engaged at the time, so we were about to get married and then moved to New York together.
Did you postpone the wedding when you started on Broadway, or did you do it and then go to Broadway?
No, we got married in May. So here's a short story is we were supposed to get married in March. The show got extended past our wedding date. So we postponed the wedding to May. I won the show in March. We got married in May.
Wow.
Went on a honeymoon to Mexico in May. Started rehearsals June 1st in New York City. Opened on Broadway in July.
Wow, a newlywed.
2007 was a big year.
New marriage, new career on Broadway. It's such a young age. You feel the rush of all that all that life can bring. And then, later in life, you see the nasty, the underbelly of life. You feel that, and then you rise above that. And I would say that puts you squarely in the sweet spot. The up, the down. That's just the way it is. As the great Herbie Nanis said, who was the manager for Sly Stallone, who recently died. I loved Herbie. He said, and sorry, I know you probably don't swear often, but life's a shit sandwich. Eat it or starve. You have no choice. You just got to keep going.
And I think I had tasted so much of the extreme high for so many years. I had 14 years, and young, of extreme highs, living my Broadway dream in New York City, and then experienced one of the most public extreme lows. Yeah. And if that doesn't add some grit to your life and build some character and make you come out the other side, I don't know what else.
Well, that's what a full life is. And keep in mind, folks, if you haven't had your moment, and you're going to have something terrible is going to happen. And it could be, I don't know. Hopefully it's not, like a terminal illness of a child or something like that. But something out of the blue that you don't see coming is going to happen in your life if it hasn't already. And that's just what life is. And getting through that, if everything was just like it was at 21 and 23, where, oh my God, I'm in love and I'm getting married. Oh my God, I just won this incredible TV show. Oh my God, I'm a star on Broadway. Oh my God. If that was life, it'd actually be very boring and you'd get very, what do we do? These things condition you. And now when you experience the highs, I bet you do it with a little more appreciation and a little bit more context. And don't let yourself swing, so much either way.
That's exactly it. And these experiences become part of your story.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, that's why I continue to want to tell the story, because I want other people to be able to feel inspired or more courageous or whatever, less afraid, or to hold true to their values or their convictions. And to know that, yes, there is life on the other side of it, and life is long. Being able to plant seeds and do lots of different things in your life. Like, yeah, Broadway was a chapter, and for a while it was a painful chapter to look back upon. And I couldn't even see the good in any of it. And now I'm finally like, no, that was incredible. And I can celebrate that for what it was without like needing to go back and do that again. Like I'm called into other things now. And like my husband and I. Right.
Although,
we'll see.
Would it be, I will say, if a network morning show called me and said, we want you. You were good at it. You were great. I don't know that I would do it, but I sure would love, the call would feel fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you spend much time with the thought of maybe returning and hitting Broadway one more time for a run in something?
Thanks for asking. And it's interesting to think about. I think I don't spend much time thinking of that thought, which I think is good. That means I've moved on. I don't need it the way that I used to.
Yeah.
However, the door has knocked actually a couple times with some opportunities that could either bring me back or do something that could launch me back there. And it hasn't been the right opportunity. I think at this point,
I'd like to see it. I would. Just for you. Just for the inside, just for the small win. And I know you wouldn't be like, oh, God, I was everything. I know you would take it with like, it would just be, I would be applauding and probably crying in a corner somewhere. I'm not kidding.
You'll be at my opening night.
Oh, you're darn right. You're darn right.
I don't think that door is closed forever. Which it would be wonderful, but it's going to have to be the perfect role with the perfect people. And how wonderful it will be to redeem that someday when all of the boxes are checked in that way.
Might be The Sound of Music. I don't know. Couldn't you see her in the Julie Andrews? I mean, that would just be something. We'll see. Thank you so much, Laura. Lots of love to you. And I just appreciate catching up in the whole thing. You're a doll.
Likewise. So great to see you again. Take care.
Take care. You gotta love Laura Osnes. I mean, she was treated like absolute shit by the snobbiest, gossipiest little, Broadway, little insular. They were probably storing up their bitterness over her for years and years because of the way she came in, having won a television show. And they finally got to shit all over her. And she just remains with a sunny disposition. Moved on with her life. She forgives. She's that good a person. Are you that good a person? I'm not going to answer that. Hot Mics with Billy Bush is presented by LAGOLF. Take your swing to the next level with LAGOLF's cutting-edge tech. Visit LAGolf.com. Upgrade your game. You can always listen to us exclusively on TuneIn. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We're back on Monday. Who knows where we're going to go, but probably into... 1 year anniversary of the Blake Lively Baldoni disaster. We've got the big changes in the Alan Jackson removed himself from the Nick Reiner case. That's a big one. There is so much. Louis Mangione's got his next hearing on Friday. So we'll see. We'll be dexterous. Till then, ta-ta. Thanks for listening.